For the record, my name is Benjamin Weber. I'm the District 6 City Councilor, and I'm the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Labor, Workforce, and Economic Development. Today is April 3rd, 2025, and it is now 2:04 in the afternoon. In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including the requirement that public bodies conduct meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public. The City Council will be conducting this hearing virtually via Zoom. The hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, FiOS Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.labor@boston.gov. That's labor, LABOR, and will be made part of the record and available to all counselors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called in the order in which they signed up, and they'll have 2 minutes to testify. If you wish to sign up for public testimony, if not done so already, please email our central staff liaison, Shane Pack, at shane.pac@boston.gov for the Zoom link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on 10 labor and workforce development grants to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. 3 of the grants are for tax assistance help, 2 are to fund opportunities for youth, and 5 are for skills and workforce training, specifically for adults, reentering citizens, and unemployment insurance claimants. 3 grants are from the Mass Hire Department of Career Services, and 2 are from the Department of Labor. Hopefully it'll keep existing, and the rest are from the state, Santander Bank and Philanthropic Partners. I'm going to read the following documents. I'm going to read all 10 into the record. Shane, is that normal procedure?
Unfortunately, yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, so docket number 0294 is a message and order authorizing the city to accept and expend the amount of $100,000 in the form of a grant for the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program awarded by the United States Department of the Treasury and to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund services to underserved populations in the hardest to reach areas, both urban and non-urban, in basic tax return preparation to qualified individuals. Okay, only 9 more to go. Docket number 0295, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $75,000 in the form of a grant for the Boston Tax Help Coalition Santander Bank grant awarded by Santander Bank to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund the Boston Tax Help Coalition to provide pathways from poverty to financial empowerment by maximizing the impact of tax credits through free tax preparation, financial education, and economic stability opportunities. Okay. And then it's, I think these matters were sponsored by Michelle Wu, the mayor, and were referred to the committee on January 29th, 2025. I think that refers to the first 2 dockets. And then the next docket, only 8 more to go, number 0400, a message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $410,000 in the form of a grant for the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance funding awarded by the Massachusetts Executive Office for Administrative and Finance to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund to support the Center for Working Families Boston Tax Help Coalition in assisting low-income taxpayers with personal income tax filing for the 2024 tax session. Docket number 0405, Message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $50,000 in the form of a grant for the Friends of Youth Opportunity Boston Grant awarded by the Baupost Group to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund opportunities for young people ages 12 to 24 to work and learn along with intensive staff support. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on February 5th, 2025. Following grant, I've lost count, 0454 is a message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $43,312.50 in the form of a grant for the FYOB MLK Scholars Program awarded by the Boston Foundation, passed through the Philanthropic Initiative to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund summer jobs, financial education, and professional development opportunities for Boston youth. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and was referred to the committee on February 12th, 2025. Docket number 0526, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $1,190,071.64 in the form of a grant for the Carry In WIOS Adult Program awarded by the United States Department of Labor, passed through the Mass Hire Department of Career Services to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund services to help job seekers access employment, education skills, training apprenticeships, and support services. Docket number 0529. Message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $95,000 in the form of a grant for the Workforce Training Fund grant awarded by Mass Hire Department of Career Services to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund programming to help address business productivity and competitiveness by providing resources to Massachusetts businesses for training current and newly hired employees. Making steady progress here. Docket number 0531. Message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $41,828.60 in the form of a grant for the Shelter Supplement Funding Grant, awarded by Mass Hire Department of Career Services to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund Mass Hire career centers with supplemental funding to support emergency assistance shelter residents with training and employment opportunities. These matters I just read were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and were referred to the committee on February 26, 2025. Okay, I guess we've gone through just two more, and we're you ready to go on with the hearing. Docket number 0642, message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $382,163.59 in the form of a grant for the Carry In Wagner Pizer Program Grant awarded by the United States Department of Labor, passed through the Mass Hire Department of Career Services to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund the individual reemployment needs of unemployment insurance claimants as well as prevent and detect improper benefit payments and application assistance for training and education resources and programs. Last but not least, docket number 643. Message and order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $140,000, a round number, in the form of a grant for the Uncornered Grant awarded by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, passed through the Economic Development and Industrial Corporation of Boston, to be administered by the Office of Workforce Development. The grant will fund coaching, mentorship, and other workforce development training opportunities for at-risk, violence-involved youth and re-entering citizens. These last two matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on March 12, 2025. Okay, I think I've spoken enough. I just, before we get started, I'd like to thank my colleagues who've shown up in the order of arrival. Councillor Ed Flynn, Councillor Aaron Murphy, Councillor Liz Braden, Councillor Enrique Pepin, Councillor Gabriela Coletta Zapata, and Council President Rusi Louis Jen. I think they've all heard me read a little too much today, but it's just an unexpected treat, I think. So we have been joined by I think three, maybe four panelists at this point. Just appears so. Yep, we got four panelists. So we've got Constance Martin, Director of Operations for the Center for Working Families and Office of Workforce Development. Tanisha De Leon. Okay, good. Deputy Director, Youth Options Unlimited with the Office of Workforce Development. Katie Gall, Director of Grants for the Office of Workforce Development. Joseph Lay, Chief of Staff for the Worker Empowerment Cabinet. I really want to thank them for showing up. And for my colleagues who've shown up, you can have plenty of time to speak. I think in terms of these grants, I think it just might be better to hear. I think we have a presentation or hear from the panelists. They're going to describe the grants. I can call on you in order. I think Constance Martin, if you're first. I have in my notes that you're going to speak about grants number 294, 295, 400, and I guess any other tax-related grants. But feel free to address those. And then after we're done, we'll go to my colleagues for questions. Constance, you're up.
Thank you so much. I think Katie's going to share our presentation. So thank you all so much. I'm Constance Martin. I manage the mayor's financial empowerment work as part of the Worker Empowerment Cabinet. This includes free financial coaching, non-predatory banking services, the city's children's savings account program, Boston Saves, and the Boston Tax Help Coalition. And I know all of you are familiar with the Tax Coalition's work because you're very generous in sharing information about this to your constituents, which in turn helps us get the word out to provide free tax preparation for our residents. So just to give you a sense, last year we filed over 12,000 free taxes in Boston and for Boston residents and area residents. This saves the average household about $250 per household. We generate $22 million in refunds, $7.3 million in earned income tax credits. We train over 300 area residents to be volunteers, and we provide free credit building this year at 5 sites. So this program is funded in large part by the IRS. This year our grant was smaller than usual, but the IRS gave us $100,000. We follow IRS training. We pay for site coordinators at 30 different sites from late January to mid-April. And we also received $410,000 in docket 400 from the state's IRS state's Department of Revenue. We also supplement the tax preparation with credit building services. This is funded primarily by this grant from Santander for $75,000. So we are very grateful to all of you who helped spread the word about this service. There are still far too many Boston residents paying for tax preparation who could get it for free. So it's really important to us to spread the word. Councillor Flynn helped us out last year by speaking at our tax launch. You're all invited to attend the next one in January. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the Boston Tax Coalition and its work.
Thank you very much. I guess are all the materials in these slides, Tanisha and Katie, or if not, Tanisha, you're up next. If you want to continue to present the grants that you're.
Do you want to do questions?
You want me to stop screen sharing and then during questions, and then I can start again when.
I think as the chair, I'm just making the call. If Tanisha,
Yeah.
if you have a presentation, Katie, if you have a presentation or just some comments, we'd love to hear what you have to say, and then I'll go to my colleagues for questions.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I'll go to the next slide then.
Sounds good to me. Really nice to meet you all. My name is Tanisha DeLeon, and I've been with YOU now for about a year and a half as a deputy director. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity today to share more about the impactful work that we're doing at YOU Boston. We were a program founded under Mayor Menino to embody the city's longstanding commitment to justice involved at risk and proven risk youth. And our mission is to empower young people to succeed in the workforce, in their communities and in their lives. So, we do this through a two-pronged approach. Youth have access to cohort-based programming where they can get paid $16.25 an hour to complete workshops, professional development, and life skills training. And then the second prong is our internship experiences where youth are paid $18 an hour to gain exposure to various industries, explore interests, and build job readiness. So through this model, our ultimate goal is to make sure that youth are becoming more engaged, building a safe, healthy, and fulfilling lifestyle, as well as just having fun, right? Especially in the summer months, we want to make sure that youth are getting space to be kids. And, the way that we spend majority of our grants is that most funds actually go to youth pockets via hourly stipends. And then the minority of the funds actually support programming, staffing, and supplies. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about our impact metrics. They're listed here below. But essentially, over the past year, we were able to reach over 258 youth, 98% meeting our criteria of justice involved at risk or proven risk. We also placed 44 youth throughout the city at different sites, by partnering with 43 different local businesses and city agencies. Really proud of the metric that our folks who are in case management, coaching, and also resource navigation were able to provide over 1,475 hours of direct service. To speak a little bit on the grants, so docket 0405 from the Baupost group, 69% of those funds are used for stipends. The 31% is for operational costs. For MLK scholars, 90% is used for stipends, 10% for operational costs. And then the last docket is 0643 uncornered. And we're projecting about 60% for youth stipends and 40% of operational costs. But in all, this investment ensures that there's community-wide access to direct services and helps reinforce the broader goals of public safety, youth employment and engagement, as well as just opportunity. Awesome. And I don't know, Katie, if you want to go next, or if it's just us two.
No, yeah. Katie, if you wanted to speak about Career Center grants, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
These are just some additional slides about the YOU program model. So I'm going to speak on these 4 dockets related to funding for the career centers. We've had a couple of hearings now touching on our funding for the career centers. So I just bring this slide back in as a reminder of the flow of funding. Career centers are 2 Boston career centers, one which is operated by Jewish Vocational Services in downtown Boston, and a new one operated by ABCD in Roxbury, are funded by a combination of federal funds, including Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA dollars, Wagner-Pizer, and the other dockets that are here. So these funds are supplemented by state, and we also supplement typically with Neighborhood Jobs Trust dollars to ensure a range of services for eligible Bostonians at our 2 career centers. So we mentioned that these funds are passed through from the Department of Labor, and they come highly regulated. So we don't have a lot of discretion in terms of like how these dollars are used. The funds come from the Department of Labor and are then awarded to the state of Massachusetts. The Department of Career Services oversees the career centers statewide. Massachusetts has 16 local area workforce boards. Boston is one of those 16, and we're all expected to meet compliance and performance standards for the career centers. Each Mass Higher Workforce Board is tasked with the job of awarding a charter to a career center operator. So that's where Jewish Vocational Services and ABCD come in. In Boston, the Boston Private Industry Council, or PIC, serves as Boston's Mass Higher Workforce Board, appointed by Mayor Michelle Wu. The Office of Workforce Development serves as the fiscal agent for the Workforce Board. Here's the locations of our two career centers. So just to note that this first docket is number 0526 is designated as carry-in WIOA adult program funds. WIOA funds are allocated on a 2-year cycle from the state, and it's a somewhat complicated arrangement this year because of the dissolution of dissolution of the BPDA and bringing all of the previously EDIC related activities under the direct auspices of the city. So the fact that we're bringing these dollars in now is really an artifact of that process. So the funds were awarded in FY24. We had FY24 and FY25 to expend them. So that's why they're labeled here as carry-in dollars. And you see also we voted on several other awards of WIOA funds. So it looks like there's some duplication, but I believe it's because some of it is FY24, some of it is FY25, and we have that 2-year time horizon to spend the dollars. The grant funds are awarded to help service job seekers who are accessing the career centers, which really serve as a front door for the publicly funded workforce system. Our job seekers who are on unemployment insurance are required, as a condition of receiving their unemployment insurance benefits, to register for services at the career centers. And so these are the funds that support the staff that do resume, job search, workshops, and then there are funds available to help people who wish to retrain for other jobs. So that is also docket 0529 is related to career services and business services at the career centers. Docket number 0531 is a little bit different. This was an allocation from the state of $2 million from the Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund, so a line item in the state budget that was divided up amongst our 16 career centers, our 16 workforce boards, and Boston received a portion of that to provide emergency services at the shelters housing newly arrived migrants. The funds were eligible uses of the funds included things like ESOL, job training for shelter residents, covering staff time for existing career center employees to be on site at the shelters, conducting trainings, conducting ESOL. We had seen a very strong uptake of those, and there were some real success stories in terms of employers being able to fill longstanding vacancies with folks recruited through this program. And then finally, our Wagner-Pizer funds are specifically for unemployed individuals. And so what we do is we bundle these funds and we create a single award to our two Mass Higher Career Centers. So all of these funds are braided together. This is the total budget size for each of our two Mass Higher Career Centers. So we don't typically look for programmatic outcomes for each grant line item. We look for programmatic outcomes for the career centers as a whole. And I believe that is the end of what I have to present about it. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, so now I'm going to throw it to council colleagues, just for those of you still here. In order, it's going to be Councillor Flynn, then Councillor Murphy, Councillor Braden, Councillor Pepin, Councillor Coletta Zapata, then Council President Louis Jen. So Councillor Flynn, if you are here, I guess 6 minutes for a statement and any questions, and we can come back after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, you're up, Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the administration team that is here, that presented. I've had the opportunity to visit the Jewish Vocational Services, and just want to highlight the exceptional job training, education, support they provide. I was really impressed with that organization, and I know other organizations do exceptional work as well. Maybe I'll just ask a general question, if I may. Can you talk about some of the support you're providing to any organization that supports persons with disabilities? How are you getting them into job training programs, and how are you able to get them into the workforce as well through that job training experience? So specifically focused on persons with disabilities, but thank you, whoever would like to take it.
Yeah, Counselor, I can answer for the work of the career centers in general. The career centers are tasked with providing services for individuals with disabilities, both from the point of view of job seekers and also from the point of view of helping employers understand the opportunities that exist in hiring individuals with disabilities. We do have a couple of organizations that we fund, that we make grants to, that are specifically for individuals with disabilities or individuals who need accommodation in their workplace. I think that there is a report that we can identify the number of individuals with disabilities who are served on an ongoing basis. I will say that as we move into the labor market changing, over the last 18 months, the labor market has changed pretty significantly, where we had a very tight labor market with very low unemployment and employers being really willing to look for opportunities and extend opportunities because they had roles that they wanted to fill. And I think a challenge for us, and something we're going to be need to be very mindful of in the coming years, is going to be how to make sure that those opportunities stay in place for individuals with disabilities, despite perhaps a looser labor market and higher unemployment rates. And this is true across the board, where, we definitely find that people who have barriers to employment, of course, have higher opportunities when there's lower unemployment rates. And I think it's one of the challenges of our office to ensure that we're continuing to support our nonprofits that work closely with the disabled individuals to make sure that they continue to have those supports in place. We have this year used a portion of our youth funding, of our Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act youth funding, to provide specific supports for youth serving organizations to ensure that the mental health needs of young people are also being addressed, because of the importance of addressing invisible disability as well as physical disability. It is a need that our youth providers consistently cite as something that is a huge barrier for employment for young people, that they don't have access to mental health or behavioral health services. So that's something that we've continued to invest in. This year, we made a grant of $300,000 to support behavioral health services integrated into our youth serving programs. And we're looking to hopefully continue that in the coming fiscal year.
And
Thank
I
you.
will add that I'm sorry, Counselor, we have a part-time disability ambassador at the Center for Working Families, working about 12 hours a week. She is our liaison to some of the major disability groups that we work with, the Mass Commission for the Blind, Deaf Inc. And so while our work in the tax sites, people self-identify, I think about 19 to 20% of our taxpayers self-identify as having some kind of disability. We also have a specific location that receives extra disability training in addition to what our tax site coordinators get in Brighton, where there's parking, and it was all our partners wanted a place where there was parking and a feeling of great community safety. So we've been doing tax sites there on Sundays. There is also cross promotion to the disabled community for the other services we offer, such as financial and employment coaching. And all of that is available to any Boston resident. And so we would, if you have particular organizations or individuals who come to you seeking assistance, please refer them to us and we will do our best to help them.
Excellent. That's very good. Does that also includes, and I'm sure the answer is yes, but that also includes persons with intellectual disabilities as well. Can you talk a little about how you're reaching persons with intellectual disabilities and how you're able to get them into job training programs and into jobs?
I definitely think that is a harder group to reach and a harder group to place. We do have a full-time coach who has a lot of experience in that area. I think her master's degree is in that specific topic. But I would have to get back to you on the numbers of people we serve in that constituency and where we place them.
Okay. Yeah, I would be interested in that. I know some of the colleges and universities have programs for people with intellectual disabilities for employment opportunities. But is there any type of like list of friendly companies or friendly employers that would hire persons with intellectual disabilities, or if we know someone that is in this situation, should they come to talk to your team and maybe your team could help them? What advice would you give us?
I think we would need to do a little more research on that. I know the courthouses for a long time used members with individuals with intellectual disabilities to clean. I had heard that program might be over. So I would have to do some research on that.
Okay, no, thank you. And those types of programs are programs I support. I think we have to do more to support people with intellectual disabilities. They are our neighbors too, and they want to contribute to society. They want to make money. They want to be engaged and have a career and be happy and healthy. So those are types of programs I'm interested in and would love to continue to work with you on those. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me a couple of minutes to talk.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Councilor Murphy, you're up. Councilor Braden, you're on deck. So 6 minutes. Councilor Murphy, you're up.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm going to follow up on a few things that Councilor Flynn had started to talk about. And as I was going through the different dockets, there's a lot. It seems, we have somewhat, obviously impactful, but a lot of like small dollar grants that are going to support. Some of it seems a little vague in the wording. Obviously, you work hard at putting it to good use, but how are we able to then know if there is a grant or money that would help assist us, a young adult or, a youth? Because I did file a hearing order and then actually filed a 17F yesterday to get some answers, waiting for that to be scheduled on specifically more internship and youth summer job opportunities for our students in BPS, right? We've guaranteed, right? The administration has said any child in Boston who wants a job, we're going to make sure you get one, and have heard directly from special ed teachers and parents of, special ed children that they don't feel as though the same opportunities are there for them. And so some of the questions may be related to the grants and the work you do. So if you could talk on that, because the questions I had were, even say in City Hall itself, are all city departments who offer youth summer jobs required to also offer jobs to a child with a disability? And then obviously there is maybe some extra support we would have to give the employer, right? So I don't want to make it seem like there's an assumption that it's just easy. So what supports, and would any of these grants go towards, either training or finding? Sometimes, as you all know, it could be as simple as moving chairs or desks around so that if it's mobility issues or finding, technology that helps assist, I'm happy to find out recently that I do have a former student who will be his second time with a summer internship, and it is through the Mass Commission for the Blind. So it isn't directly through the Youth Summer Job Link, but we met with the person from the Mass Commission for the Blind again and got that set up for him this summer. And he's graduating from Roxbury Community College. He's a VPS graduate. So just if you could just talk on that, if anyone has some advice on how we could maybe who in the city we could point people towards for some of these concerns they may have?
Counselor, I just wanted to clarify, and thank you for I know where you had mentioned the 17F. The youth program here that is involved, that Tanisha does work, is separate from the YEO Future Boss program. So just to clarify that out, but so the demographic that these grants are going to are justice-involved youth, and I'm sure there is a population within that justice-involved youth that Tanisha can talk about that do have the disabilities and different needs that they are being met. But I just wanted to clarify that this YOU program is something that is separate from the YO program that the 17F that you requested that we are working on, we will be working on is separate from the grant dollars being talked about here.
I will add, though, Counselor, that we have one of our summer job programs, a program called Summer Learn and Earn, did have a student last year who had both learning disabilities and I believe was deaf and had emotional issues. It required having a full-time ASL interpreter accompany him to class 3 days a week, which was a huge expense. But we split it with Benjamin Franklin, which was our partner. We didn't begrudge a penny, but that money does have to come from somewhere.
No, yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, though, right, it's a tough conversation, but we also federally, right, are
Absolutely.
mandated. So it's like we do have to be careful, right? We want to, if we're saying we're offering for everyone, we do have to really understand that. What does that mean? And can we financially support it?
And to ensure that that young person feels welcome and supported and that no one behind the scenes worrying about the cost
Of course, yeah.
communicates that in any way to him or to anybody else. That is so important because we want other people to hear about that good experience and know that they can have confidence that we would offer that same welcoming environment.
Yeah.
That's good.
And, I would add too, I think our approach at YOU is a little bit different than YEO, in that we are deeply committed to individualized care. So we're a referral only program that works specifically with DYS, Youth Connect, the mayor's team, MBTA police, BPD, a list of about 12 agencies. And often, youth and families that are coming our way are having trouble with applications or, getting certain documents. So we're able to actually, Paul Chong, I forget, is it the registrar's office? I'm looking at Joseph. We work with him to get birth certificates. We also support youth with state IDs and the application process. And then once all of that is done, we conduct intake and make sure that we're placing them at a site that works for them. Whether or not we're making sure that that's safe or that they can actually do the work that's there. And, I will say relating to disabilities, a lot of times we are working with youth that have severe IEPs, and that's where our collaboration with Boston Public Schools and other youth agencies come in handy because we can flag that for different instructors and other site partners so that they're either making sure to be more verbal or not giving them things to read for work.
That's all good, and just here to support the grants, and we'll continue to listen in on the good work you're doing with them. So thank you, everyone, for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Braden, if you're here, you are up. I think Councillors Pepin and Coletta Zapata have dropped out. So Council President Louis Jen, will be up next. Councilor Braden, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone who's here this afternoon. There's a great range of, thank you, that's a long list of grants to read out, Mr. Chair. I'm curious about our relationship with the career centres and the PIC. I know that the relationship, and then the PIC liaisons in the high schools, how we connect everybody to all the resources that are available.
Yeah, I can take that one. So the career centers are highly regulated by both the federal context and the state context. So in terms of the grants that we're speaking on today, those come attached with the programmatic requirements that we are required to deliver. We don't have a lot of sort of flexibility in our approach. So our main role and task vis-a-vis the PIC is that the PIC oversees the programmatic implementation. They run the procurement to select who's going to be the career center charter operator. They do the day-to-day management to make sure that the career centers are operating in compliance with the federal and state rules. And we serve as the fiscal agent. So we do all of the fiscal monitoring. We do the annual audit, which is really coming up in like 2 weeks. We're getting ready for that. We do all of the data reporting on the back end to the state. So there's a particular interface that every client and every career center operator have to use, and we serve as the sort of help desk for all of our operators locally. So we have two very distinct roles, and in order to make that happen, we have a breakdown of the administrative portion of the funds that is split between our office and the PIC to cover the staff time required to do that. So a lot of it is, keeping abreast of the ever-evolving landscape of federal regulations and making sure that those activities are being carried out. And then trying to understand how to wrap in additional services to meet the needs of our local communities. So we don't want to just stop at the federal regulations and say, like, you can come here and check a box and get your unemployment insurance. We want to make sure that we're really serving both job seekers and employers in a creative and innovative ways. So we do bring in additional funds from the Neighborhood Jobs Trust. The state brings in funding. When we apply for federal grants or other competitive grants, we often include a role for the Career Center to try and, layer on those additional services that we believe are really necessary. As an example, 2 years ago, we had some funding that, due to the pandemic, was going unspent, and we needed to figure out how to spend it by the end of the fiscal year. And at the same time, we've always had this desire to make sure that young people can come to the career centers and get services. Technically, on paper, anybody who's 18 plus can get services in the career centers. In reality, unless you build a service really deliberately for young adults, it's not as welcoming, and they don't tend to use the career centers. And so we find very low utilization for young adults. So we made a grant to JVS to pilot a young adult career center. So this is a space within their existing career center that has separate staffing, separate programming. They have virtual reality. They have a lot of workshops that are really geared toward young adults doing career exploration. And they've built out a really strong relationship with particularly the guidance counseling team at BPS to make sure that there's a place where young people who maybe aren't planning to go to college or are planning on working and doing college at the same time can come in and get guidance about their career choices. Another example is making sure that we have sufficient contextualized ESOL. We have a lot of people who need jobs. We have a lot of employers with jobs they need filled, and we have a lot of people who have qualifications and certifications from their home country and maybe need the English language skills to be able to get to work in the most productive way. Yeah. So those are some examples of the kind of planning that we do. In terms of the high school career counselors, I don't know, maybe they are very closely integrated with the Future Boss network. And so the work of Future Boss is to serve as that umbrella for all of the summer jobs opportunities. And we do regularly see that all of our summer jobs partners are relying on the network and the infrastructure that the PIC has created of counselors in each of the high schools to make sure that young people are developing a relationship with somebody who knows about the opportunities, who knows the young person who's in front of them, who can provide them with really good and clear guidance. So those are some of the ways that we relate with the PIC.
That's a lot, yes. Thank you. I'm also delighted to hear that the ESOL piece is an important. And these are folks who come, they've already got professional qualifications, maybe in or trade skills in their home country, but they need to improve their English language skills to be able to really access the workforce. Is that?
Yeah, I think there's a big population that fits that description.
Yeah, and in terms of the Neighbourhood Jobs Trust, how much money do we get from the Jobs Trust to support your work?
It varies, obviously, based on construction in the city. Last year, we had $3.5 million in funding to award. That was sort of a high point, maybe a high watermark in terms of, lots of development in the city. So a typical year might be a little bit less, but in the 6 years I've been here, it's been between $1.5 and $3.5 million.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I think that might be my time, Mr. Chair.
You got 20 more seconds. So
20 more seconds. Well, I'll use my 20 more seconds to thank you all for the great work you do. This is very important, and I look forward to voting affirmatively on these grants. So thank you all for your work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Braden. If Councillors Pepin or Coletta Zapata are here, chime in. I don't think so. Council President Louis Jen, you are up. If you're here, we got 6 minutes. Maybe not. I guess.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. You got 6 minutes if you want. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for holding this hearing, Mr. Chair. I want to thank everyone for the incredible work that you do. Actually, I want to echo what Councillor Braden said about the work around ESOL for our newly arrived residents. It's all important work. Would love to learn a little bit more about the partnership with Youth Connect and sort of what have we seen as successes coming out of the YU program working with justice-involved residents, which I think is really important work.
Yeah. So we have a long-standing relationship with Youth Connect. When I came into the organization about 1.5 years ago, it was really cool to see kind of a declaration of this is how we the intakes that we get, the different organizations that we can share information with. So not only is it Youth Connect, but it's also BPS, the Department of Youth Services, and some other folks. But Youth Connect has been a really strong partner of ours. We collaborate with them and the mayor's team to ensure that if our youth are coming with specific safety needs or needs with housing, mental health, they're there to support. So I'm thinking of a few youth that they were able to refer to us for employment. We were actually able to lean back on them to support with housing and support with mental health as well. So it's a lot of back and forth and roundtabling that we do amongst ourselves as people in the ecosystem to ensure that youth are being supported, not only just for employment, but other factors that might be coming into play when it comes to their participation and being able to participate in an employment program.
Thank you so much, Tanisha. And about how many youth per year are you serving?
So currently we were able to service about 200 and so I'm going back because I want to see the exact number, 258 youth in 2024. Historically, we have been able to serve as much as 400 youth annually, but unfortunately received a pretty large funding cut. I think it was in 2024, specifically with Youth Works dollars and Baupost due to the lack of COVID funds. So, it takes a village. We're actively looking for other grants and ways to get on different budgets. But, we have a small but mighty team and we're able to serve about 258 youth this past year.
Awesome. Well, I'm hoping that you get the funding that you need because the work you're doing is really incredibly important. So thank you. And I just wanted to also thank Katie Gall for pointing out the need to support students with physical and invisible disabilities. I often think that's a conversation that gets really lost when we're talking about people, both young people and adults living with disabilities. And so just wanted to thank you for realizing that that's an important part of the work as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if any of my colleagues have joined since. It doesn't look like it. Tanisha, I had a question about sort of, sort of like selection criteria for youth. Like who are you connecting with?
Yeah.
So that I don't know if you want to walk me through that.
Sure. So this was something that we actually worked on a lot on as a team this past year. So we defined our target population and adjacent population. I think historically we would just take youth who we were self-identified as at risk, but that wasn't in line with what different community violence intervention organizations actually recommend. So we use the Department of Justice, amongst some other folks who actually write grants in the space to define our target population and adjacent. So target population, these are priority youth. They're youth ages 14 to 24 who are City of Boston residents and or BPS students. And normally these youth have contact with the justice system. These are persons directly involved in community violence or indirectly involved in community violence. What that could look like is, somebody involved in a shooting or who, either witnessed or was with somebody that committed a shooting. Someone who was identified as part of our BPD referral or MBTA police referral. Something that's pretty crazy is a lot of our youth are actually banned from the MBTA because of some of the incidents. So that actually affects their safety if they're not able to get from one place to another in a quick and efficient way. And then additionally, other folks who are just direct survivors of community violence. So, once you are a survivor of community violence, you're actually more likely to commit a crime involving a gun. So we try to deter youth in our target population who are victims of community violence. And then adjacent population, these are more of our youth that are just going through a lot of extreme things and might not be involved in a lot of criminality. So it can be somebody in the justice system or someone with a violent offense, but it could also be someone assessed for antisocial attitudes and also just have substance misuse at an early age. So we have a big range of youth, but I think majority of youth are just justice involved and or involved in some type of community violence.
And then I'm sorry to put this.
No, you're good.
But just in terms of how those kids make it into your programs, are they just I know Isaac Yablo does a lot of great work, or how are you out there, or why are you out there? How do those kids connect with your programs?
So we're a referral only program and we have 3 different tiers of referrals. So, technically it can be a self-referral that comes in from the community and we conduct intake, but we have a whole case management and recruitment part of our team that makes sure that they're connecting with different people at BPS, connecting with people at the MBTA police to say, hey, what's going on? What kind of youth have you encountered over the past few weeks or months? We also attend a lot of community meetings where a lot of these events are being spoken about. And then we try to backtrack, whether that's a lot of times we're talking to a youth's friend and we're like, hey, we heard about this situation. Do you guys want to work with us this summer? Or, something might be flagged specifically to the mayor's team or another agency that somehow makes it to our desk, but we focus a lot on the tier referral system. So there are normally people who work specifically with our target population, other folks who kind of work with our target population, and then others who mostly work with our adjacent.
Okay, yeah, I know Boys and Girls Club is opening up the youth center at Mildred Haley. I don't know if I would love to get you and the Boys and Girls Club in the same room. Maybe you've already worked with them, but if they, see somebody who could benefit from your programming, maybe, they can
Most definitely.
refer, or at least I'll try to connect you, or, you can connect with them directly. You don't need
That
me.
would be great. Yeah, we work heavily. I don't know if you know Bashir, but we
Yeah.
work yeah, so we work really closely with folks at the Mildred Haley. I didn't know that they were actually building that out. So
It's yeah, it's
yeah, we're more than
happening.
happy to.
We
Great.
had a meeting a couple weeks ago with Administrator Bach and State Rep Montan,
Nice.
boys and girls, and trying to get that. So yeah, I had been told it would be years in the future, but they're actually starting in the next couple of months. So it's good news, and hopefully, sort of have you plug into that would be great. I guess
Yeah.
just Tanisha, you can answer first, but then this is also for the other counselors. In terms of, a lot of this is federal funding. I don't know what the federal government's approach to good programs seems to be to cut them. Anything we like. And so what are you, and I know so far the plan has been, well, we'll wait to see what happens. I don't know what kinds of discussions you're having to, if you've had any communications of like, this program will be canceled very soon. How are you preparing for it if at all? And I'm not, if it's not, then I think it's that I understand that decision. So Tanisha, impact of Doge Trump administration on your program.
Yeah, it's a great question. We're in some like interesting times to be working in government and also just in like youth programming. We're actively applying to grants, trying to still stay away from federal grants that are kind of up in the air, but looking more towards different foundations and folks that have more flexible funds. Additionally, we've been leaning on our partners to figure out how we can, work together to raise funds. So specifically, Uncornered is a really good example of essentially a pilot that we're running this year with them, where we're directly at the Uncornered office delivering services. So we're hoping to use the different metrics and successes through that pilot to be able to work towards other grants to then fund it. I will also say we are actively creating a wish list of different corporations that we could possibly work with to fund different cohorts. A really good example is we have a sports and leadership cohort with a lot of youth, and it's so big now that we have 2 different cohorts this summer running. But what does that look like to maybe have a conversation with all the different sports shoes? There's New Balance, there's Puma, there's Noble in the city. Like how can we make sure that some of those dollars that are being given to the city somehow make it into youth pockets? So just actively in conversations, trying to be creative.
Yeah, and before Katie and Constance, I guess, I know a lot of biotech companies have made a lot of money in the last few years using Boston as their base, maybe Cambridge, whatever. But I do think looking for partners there, might I know they would have an interest in helping youth in Boston. They want to have a workforce, and they certainly have the resources to do it. So anyway, thanks, Tanisha. I don't know, Katie or Constance, do you have any thoughts on what, have you had any communications about your programming?
We've not had a lot of communications as yet, although I was in a meeting with people from the IRS on Tuesday where they said they are very hopeful that the VITA program will be continued.
That was my question for you, Constance, actually. Yeah, for
Yes, I'm very worried, but we could do our program. We've been told the state is going to reduce our funding for next year, not because they don't support us, but because of other urgent needs. And yes, I anticipate that local philanthropy, which supports a lot of our programs, will be diverted to food insecurity and housing insecurity. We will still offer the tax coalition, even if it is fewer hours or fewer locations. And, we will continue even if our funding is cut. But, we may be asking all of you to help us. Who knows? I think the IRS is going through, as all of you know, even more ruthless scrutiny than a lot of other organizations and our residents will still be expected to pay more than their fair share, sadly. But I think Chief Wynn is optimistic about other funding because the one thing that is a nonpartisan issue is that they want people to be working. So funding for job training may very well be unaffected. But again, it's way too soon for us to guess about what's going to happen to either our funding or our state in particular, I think.
Yeah, I think you're assuming there's some logic in this.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to presume there'll be any logical decisions. But anyway, thanks, Katie. Do you have anything you want to add?
Well, we tend to see some of the action at the federal level trickles down to us in the form of policy directives, so it's been an interesting year for sure. And I think we've tried to be a real source of transparency and guidance for all of our grantees because fundamentally, we have 120 nonprofit organizations that we make grants to. The funds don't stay with our office, they get passed through, and making sure that there's still continued capacity for all those organizations is hugely important. So we have seen some of our partner organizations like at community colleges that are deeply affected by, for example, the DEI executive orders or executive orders impacting services for immigrant students. I would say that, for our immigrant students at BPS, there's also a lot of sense of how they're being impacted, maybe not by the letter of what's being distributed, but by the spirit, and really making sure that people know that they shouldn't self-select out of programs just because of something they've heard in the news, or making sure that our programs continue to be a space where all of our students can show up and get the services that they deserve, is definitely something that all of our nonprofit organizations are taking very, very seriously. So we've had a couple of webinars for all of our programs to give them a chance to ask and answer any questions that we can. Some of our recurrent federal funding was in the continuing resolution, which was good, right? Like our community development block grant funding. We're still waiting to understand whether or not WIOA is going to be fully on the chopping block, but traditionally it has enjoyed pretty strong bipartisan support. So Trin is following it extremely closely in DC. But the reality is if they make cuts in workforce the way cuts have been made in other areas, then some of the programs that we're discussing today will be very significantly changed. So.
Okay, thank you. I guess, is there anything that you can think of in terms of our kids at BPS and ICE and how to strengthen, the family's confidence that their kids will be safe at BPS? Do you have any thoughts on that? It's just a simple, easy question to answer.
Well, listen, I'm always really our approach is really investing in nonprofit organizations. So whether it's the summer jobs programs or the work of the Tax Help Coalition or the work of our team in the workforce grant making team, we pass through the dollars into nonprofit organizations. And I have seen the value of that approach over and over again, as opposed to us being the direct service providers, because we know that these organizations have real strong relationships with the people that they serve. They will have known a young person, it's not like they're just coming in and they're a stranger. They might have known a young person since their early childhood. And so those kinds of relationships are super important, and we're really trying to make sure that we're giving them the support that they need to be able to continue to put those at the forefront. Because I think that's what's going to make people feel comfortable coming in the door, right? Well, this person who I know and trust is giving me the go ahead. So
I did hear something about Madison Park when we were there, that there are kids who don't want to sign up for co-ops because their families are undocumented, and I mean, I don't know, the thought that some kids don't want to go to school or can't even access programming because they're, because of what side of a line they were born on, is just wrong. But anyway, not exactly why we're here today. I think I just want to thank everyone for coming to talk, and thank Joseph for not speaking. Just kidding. Unless you had something you wanted to add, I think you're here for moral support.
More support, but just wanted to mention, Council, as you mentioned, and Katie mentioned, right, what we do well is make sure that the resources that we are privy to, whether that's, information from MIRA, the ACLU, different entities that are focused on making sure that our residents are protected, do get out there. So we did partner, with Moya, the Mayor's Office of Immigration. We partnered with BPS and Superintendent Skipper to make sure that they had all those resources at hand to get out to parents via email, via, the career counselors that the PIC provide. Anything that we can do to disseminate information, we are doing, and we want to continue to let the youth know that at the end of the day, we are going to do what we can to make sure that they are served and that we are here as a pillar for them. And whether they choose to or not to, everybody has that choice, but we're hoping that they continue, right? The Tax Coalition does a great job of making sure ITIN filers know that they're supported, that they have the language barriers met, right? We do all the major languages at various sites throughout the city. So just basic things like that, we want to continue to spread the word out. And thank you to your office and all the other councilors' offices for helping with that, to ensure that our residents at least know Boston is here to fight for them and work with them, regardless of what the federal noise is at the end of the day.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. If any of the other panelists wanted to add a comment, you're not obligated to. You feel free to chime in now.
I just wondered what happens next, Counselor. Does the council vote on these grants? How do we formally get them approved?
Yeah, so I'll as the chair of the committee, I'll bring them before the council, I think at the next meeting next week for a vote, and we will, I'm pretty sure we'll support these and we'll approve it, and then it's out of our hands. So that's our role in this. So I think probably next Wednesday we'll have a vote approving all 10 grants.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I asked the questions here, Constance. I'm just kidding. Yeah, Tanisha.
Regarding immigration, this was something that actually popped up at a meeting that we had last week. We realized that because our youth are justice involved, like sometimes they are detained or at a DYF center. So that was a conversation that we definitely want to have with Moya, just around like the expectations for that, right? Like if a youth is detained, we can't really do anything regarding their status and whether or not like ICE can come to them or not. So it's been interesting that within this time there are like double questions on like, okay, because I'm justice involved, right? Like, am I in this specific category or not? But just wanted to raise that.
Yes, basically no freedom of speech anymore. I don't know, basically that's where we're at. I'm a workers' rights attorney, and I'd often talk with my clients, and they say, well, if I come forward and challenge this practice, it's illegal for them to retaliate against me. And I say, yes, that's not really going to, after you get fired, that's going to be, I can get you some money damages later on. I can't stop them so it's illegal, everything they're doing, but it's cold comfort to somebody who's being detained, to know that it's illegal. So,
well, there has always been an invisible wall between the department, the IRS, and other federal entities, but they're breaking that down.
Which no longer exists, or even the IRS and private entities. If Mr. Musk is not a federal entity, can have everybody's social security number and everything. So, yeah, I agree. I think we're all on the same page. Before this gets too much farther afield, I am. I want to thank the panelists for their testimony and for being here, and for my colleagues who've joined us. Councilor Brian Worrell did submit an absence letter. I just want to acknowledge that. Is there Shane? Has anyone signed up for public testimony?
Nope, we're all set, Mr. Chair.
Okay, to fill the gap, I will now reread all the docket entries. No, I'm again just kidding. I want to thank Shane and Ethan and central staff for making this hearing possible. I just want to thank my colleagues and the panelists for being here. And that being said, apparently I do have to read the numbers. This hearing on dockets number 294, 295, 400, 405, 454, 526, 529, 531, 642, and 643 is now adjourned. So, gavel, thank you very much. And I will see you around, and hopefully we'll get this approved Wednesday next week. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
you.
Thanks.